Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It is the end of April 2024 and time for the next net worth update. So thank you all for joining. If you haven't, or if you're new to the channel, I am basically tracking my net worth from the age of 18 and about to turn 30 here in just a few days. So we are 12 years in at this point, to tracking our net worth. So started with about $4,000, and we will see here very shortly where we are at today. So jumping right into income, for April, I made $13,403. Paid $3,200 in taxes, $800 in my 401k, $633 in the HSA, $345 in insurance, and then $8,400 take-home pay. For my wife, she is teaching one less credit hour than she was last month, so just a slight decrease. And they've also changed the payment schedule, so it looks worse than what it actually is, but it should actually be around 1,200 probably next month. So her total take home was $694. And then rental properties are just doing their same old thing. Both tenants are paying right on time, so $2,525 for that. Next month in May, I should get $2,550. I'm gonna have to mow one of the properties, so I'll charge her $25 just to cut the grass down. So the big thing this month, we had some other income, $14,235. So my wife and I live on 66 acres. About 2 years ago, I applied to like an environmental like conservation program. And so basically it's a government funded program for like farmers who have more than 10 acres. And so since we're on 66 acres, we qualify for the program. What the program does is give you grants to help like the environment. So like if you have erosion on your property, or if you have invasive species, or if you need to build a fence for cattle, or you're making better soil, they will give you grants for those projects. And so for us, we have probably 55 to 60 acres of forest and maybe 5 acres of like a field or clearing. And so we have a lot of invasive species on our property. And so I got funded by the government to eradicate invasive species on our property. And so basically what I've done, the first year, the payment is around 28,000 for the first year. And so I don't have a whole lot of time to work on it. It would probably take me like close to 500 or 600 hours, I would say, to kill all the invasive species on my property. To like take a chainsaw to it, cut it down, and spray it with a poison. So I have hired that out to somebody else. So they're going to charge me about $15,800 over the course of the next year. And so, but the government will pay me about 28,000 for the first year. So I should profit about 13,000, which I really had to call around to find somebody that would do it that cheap. But at this point, I've paid them around 4,000, and I would say they're almost halfway done, I would say. So the reason I have 14,235 is other income. That grant program, you can have the option to get paid out half early without doing any work. They will pay you half. After a year, they'll come out to make sure that you've met your requirements in the program. If you have not, you'll have to pay the money back. Since I have it contracted out, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, it's a pretty good company that contracted it out with, so pretty well known, and they know the people in the program that I'm working with too. So all that is looking good, but it will probably be another 3 or 4 months before I get the other 14,000. The downside to this is so I've got the money up front. I basically put that money towards the house this month. So over the next like 3 to 4 months, as they do more work killing invasive species on the property, usually it's around $2,000 each time that I pay them. Like they'll do a couple weeks worth of work, I'll pay them $2,000, and so it'll be hard to meet our savings goal. But basically, we've paid off the house early, and so it'll just be harder for the next 2 or 3 months to save the appropriate amount. But so that kind of explains that 14,000 here. So gross income for the month, 31,000 just over, and then take home pay was 25,881. Only other things to note, I am quickly approaching the $1 million mark. So it has taken me, I'm 12 years into working, and still not quite there. So it looks like I'm averaging about 80,000 a year, which now my income is quite a bit higher. And I mentioned in March I got a pay increase from base salary of 170 to 174 something. Yeah, so I'm a couple months away from hitting that goal. Yeah, other than that, a few more things that I'm tracking here. So these are kind of my three internal goals that I compete with against myself. And so the first one here is like total take home pay. And so total take home pay is 1.3 million. And so that includes everything, my income, my wife's income, rental income, and other income. Um, so we are past that. We're at 1.4 million something, but we're not quite towards this second goal here, which is other income, rental income, take home pay, plus all of our retirement accounts. So yeah, just it's an ever moving number, and I don't think I've ever passed this number yet, which is kind of cool. But when I hit this, the next goal will be this number here, which is like the total gross pay that we've had in our whole entire lifetime. But moving on here to net worth. So for the month of April, very first thing that I did is update the two rental properties. So I had these undervalued for probably the last like 6 months or so. Real estate in my area has just gotten absolutely crazy. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I could find houses for around 100,000, which is about what I paid for house 5 and house 7. Now I cannot, there is no house in my local area, like within a 10-mile radius from my house. There is nothing under 240,000. Not a single house, and all the houses from 240 to 300 are all contingent. So in that price range, there is a ton of demand because I feel interest rates are so high. People are trying to buy the cheaper houses to make their monthly payment lower and just to get into their first house, but it's pushing the prices of lower houses up and up. And so, specifically for house 5 and house 7, I'm still probably undervaluing these some. Basically, I said house 5 is worth 220, which would be like the cheapest house in my whole area. And then I said house 7 is worth 200,000, and I took out 5% for realtor fees if I actually wanted to sell those. So still being pretty conservative. House number 5 is probably 240, and house number 7 is probably 220. But I did move those up this month, still being pretty conservative. I just wanted to reflect an accurate number. Next two things, land and land 8 and house number 8. These are the property my wife and I live on now. These are probably undervalued as well. It's at 1.16 million. This I'm not as concerned about. We will never sell either of these properties. We had an appraisal done 6 months ago, and it was 1.3 million is what they appraised it for when we finished building our house. So it may be somewhere around 1.35. But again, I'm not super concerned about it since we're not ever going to sell. Vehicles, I did made no changes this month, and no changes with miscellaneous like the four-wheeler, the trailer, the mower, stuff like that. Investments this month. So the market in general was down about 2.75% since the beginning of April. Our portfolio is a little bit more on the growth side versus the value side. And so our beta is a little bit higher. It's like a 1.1 if I look at our whole entire portfolio. So it moves a little bit more aggressively than what the S&P 500 would. We were actually down about 3%, where the market was down 2.75%. So we did worse than the S&P 500 this month. Again, I went through the same cycle probably 50 times now. I'm not changing anything. Just going to keep investing, keep dollar cost averaging into growth index funds. Yeah, and keep working the plan. So health savings account went down almost exactly $2,000. I think I put $600 in here, so it's maybe down $2,600. My 401k not down too bad, about $5,000. And then my wife's 403b and 457b accounts down about $6,000, and she's not contributing to that anymore since she's left her previous employer. So it's kind of just growing and shrinking with the market right now. But overall investments were down 13,000, and again, it's just to be expected. I don't know how many months now. We had 3, 4, 5, 6, basically 6 good months here where I mean we were just going up and up. We went from 381 to 534 in like 4 or 5 months. So it goes with the territory. You'll have good months and bad months, but yeah, not too worried about it. So $521,218 in investments. For debts, made minimum payments on house 5, 7, and land. Um, reason being, those are all 3% interest rate loans, 30-year fixed rates. I can't get financing that cheap anymore, or I don't know how to do that on a house. Right now, it seems like houses are 7%, maybe 7.5% interest rates on 30 years if you have a pretty good credit score. But um, basically, we focused on house number 8, which is our number one goal right now. So I would love to quit my day job as soon as I possibly could. I make really good money. I work for a pretty good company, but it is not my life's calling to work there for the rest of my life. And so I would love to focus more on real estate if I could. The downside is we have a mortgage payment of $2,500 a month plus the land payment of like $1,500 a month. So there's $4,000 that we need every month just to not lose the house and land that we live in right now. So the game plan is if we can pay off house number 8 and then pay off the land, that will reduce our monthly expenses, and at some point, the lines will cross and our rental income will be more than what the our outflow is. And so we're trying to just get those lines to cross so that way eventually I can make the transition and stop working. Quick update on work. I'm a little late on posting this video. Work has been absolutely crazy this month. So we went from being pretty slow and to all of a sudden, I've probably been putting in 80 to 90 hours a week. Plus, I drive about 2.5 hours to 3 hours a day from my house to work. And so it's been some extremely long days. We're working weekends. Yeah, it is. It's all hands on deck at the moment. So it'll probably continue to be pretty busy until like the middle of June for me. So yeah, that's just a quick update. I'm hanging on for the time being. I have not used a single vacation day yet this year, and I have like 35 or something to use for the year. So when we slow down in June, I will start taking some of those PTO days and should just be able to work 4 days a week for the rest of the year. So, kind of looking forward to that. But yeah, just trying not to get burnt out with everything. Going on at work. But so, quick update there. Sorry for the tangent, but cash sitting right at the 40,000. We made the decision last month since my wife left her previous employer. We're in a little bit more of a risky situation. So, if I lost my job, we wanted a little bit more income. Sorry, not income, cash in our savings account to just to live off of if something bad were to happen. So checkings account is sitting at 40,000, and then rental checkings account. I had quite a few calls this month on the 2 rental properties. One in specific, house number 7. They really kind of threw me for a loop this month. I think I had to deal with like 4 issues in the last like 30 days. Um, One with a condensate pump, one with um, a drain in the bathtub broke, and then there was a clog in the drain, and then they needed some landscaping done outside that had grown up and needed spray and stuff so it wouldn't grow back up, and then had to fix some guttering. All except for the clog in the drain, I was able to fix myself, and that was like $104 for that one. So yeah, got the gutter fixed, got the condensate pump fixed, got um, the drain fixed, but could not fix the clog. It was like 17 feet down into the bathtub is where it clogged up. So I didn't have anything to go that far and unclog that. So, but overall, pretty good month. Even though a lot of repairs that needed to be made, we kind of squeaked through that and did a lot of the work myself. So probably, if I would have hired all of that out, I would say that would have been an extra $500 or $600. But by doing the work myself, saved all of that. So cash is sitting at $63,243, and that brings our net worth to $1,443,796 for the year. So things are going really well. This was kind of a weird month. The only reason we did so good this month is because I increased house number 5 and house number 7. So that made me about 30,000. Then if you add in the 14,000 that we made from the environmental program, that's basically everything. That would have been 44,000, and so we were at 410 last month, and we're at 443. So we would have actually been negative probably 10,000 if it wasn't for those couple things there. A really, stock market controls a lot of it since about a third of my net worth is all in investments. It's solely dependent on what the stock market does. Yeah, so just a short explanation there, but for our goal pace, one of our current goals, I guess, is to have about $4 million by 40 years old. The first goal was to have $1 million by 30 years old. So we are actually next month we will be right at that point. My wife and I will both be 30 years old at that point, and so we are. It's kind of cool. We're $443,000 ahead of that goal of having $1 million by 30. So we really did well there. And again, I think this is a testament just to it's slow, methodical tracking. I never, put everything in Bitcoin and 10x my money overnight. It's just making smart decisions, not gambling, just doing the right thing slowly over time. But the current goal is 4 million by 40 years old. So for my current pace to hit that, I would need to be just under $1 million is kind of the pace that I would have to be at. And so we would need to save $3 million between 30 and 40. And so we're already $457,000 ahead of that goal of having 4 million by 40. So it's actually, I think we're actually going to come in. I mean, I'm predicting 10 years in the future, but we'll probably come in around 5 or 6 million is kind of what it's looking like, unless something drastic happens or something that I can't really predict. But if we keep the current pace, yeah, probably 5 or 6 million, just depending how long I decide I'm going to continue to work. Last real update. So this is our main goal is to knock out house number 8, which is the house my wife and I live in right now. So we built this house in June of 2023. Our initial loan balance was $686,000. We sold our previous house that we lived in and then put all of that money towards the mortgage, so that we got $175,000 in equity from that previous house. So all of that went towards the mortgage, and then since then it's been probably 7 or 8 months. Looks like 7 months now that we've just been whittling away at it. And so this month the plan was to put $5,140 towards it this month. If it were not for the environmental money that came in, the environmental grants, we would have not even come close to hitting $5,000. We actually would not have been able to put any additional to it this month. We had a few expenses that we had to pay for. We had to pay for property taxes this month. We paid for some landscaping. When the builders built our house, I saved a little bit of money for the landscaping. They wanted like 10 or 15,000, and so for the first like almost year, I guess for the first 10 months, we just had no landscaping. It was just dirt, and I had covered the dirt up with a black plastic tarp. And again, we live in the country, so it doesn't matter that much. But we had budgeted this month to like fill that in with dirt, and so I used the tractor and had some topsoil that I filled those flower beds in with. And then we had to buy black paper, we had to buy rock, we had to buy some plants to put in the flower beds. And so, yeah, that cost probably $1,500. Really, the plants were like $600 for plants. And then the rock was $600 as well. And it's like 520 square feet of flower bed that I had to cover. So it's actually a decent amount of space. Other than that, though, like we were pretty good shopping, which is our main category we have to keep after. I think we spent $260 this whole month on various stuff, and we had probably 5 or 6 family birthdays this month. So really, the main thing to hit these numbers here, these were the numbers that if my wife continued to work at her previous job, this was our kind of goal numbers to hit. So really to have this house paid off in 5 years, which is what the goal was, starting in August of 2023, we would need to be at $480,000 in principal left to pay on the house. We are actually way ahead of that. I got some bonuses in March, which was 15,000. Yeah, we've just had a lot of extra income coming in. We've just been chipping away all of that at the house. So yeah, I ended up putting $13,348. So not even quite all of that 14,200 that I got from the environmental program. All of that went towards house number 8 this month. And so total payment was $16,000. 14,200 went to principal. So my outstanding balance today is $433,879. I'm about almost $50,000 ahead of the goal pace. So we're somewhere on pace of paying this thing off. I guess I could scroll down and look. It looks like March of 2028. So we're 3 years and 10 months away if we kind of keep the current pace that we're going at. But looking ahead to May, though, so the goal is to pay $9,800. May is a month that I get paid 3 times, so I'll get paid this Friday, the 3rd of May. Yeah, I guess tomorrow. So I'll get the first paycheck and then 2 more for the month of May. So I'll have a little bit of extra income coming in, and our financials for next year. So when I get my bonus, 16% of my base salary in March, those numbers are already looking pretty good too. So hopefully this is more like 25,000. Um, Other than that, I am still working on firewood. I've got maybe like 2 cords split and stacked. I will try to sell that in December and January of 2025 during these months here. Um, Only other thing to note here, I spent some time this month researching solar panels, specifically like the solar sector, solar stocks. My conclusion was like solar stocks were extremely overvalued versus like the revenue that they're bringing in. With the reasoning that a lot of like governmental money is going towards like green energy. I'm chasing green energy right now, and so those all of those solar companies are just they're way overvalued. So I was going to pick a couple solar stocks to invest in. Decided way against that. But during my research, what I found was uh, places in Europe and like Australia and close to China, solar panels are becoming so cheap that people are building fences out of solar panels because the solar panels are cheaper than wood at the hardware store. And so, even though the solar panels aren't even pointed at the sky, people are building fences out of solar panels. And so, basically, my wife and I are putting all of our money towards house number 8, which is at 5.25%. And so we spent probably 2 or 3 weeks getting some quotes on like solar panels for our house. Usually our electric bill is like $300 to $400. And so we did the math, and if we put solar panels on our house, the cost was going to be somewhere around 30 to 40,000, and that would almost eliminate our whole electric bill. We'd probably bring that down to like $100 a month. Um, and that also includes in the United States for this year, 2024. If you do solar panels on your house, you're eligible for a 30% like federal tax credit. Contact your financial advisor or your CPA for more information. But yeah, so 30% federal tax credit. So it actually reduces the cost, but you don't get that until next year when you file your taxes. And so we would have come in somewhere around 25 to 30,000, but it would only saved us maybe 300-ish dollars a month. So when I did the math, it came out to a 5.5% rate of return. So a little bit better than paying off our mortgage. But we decided not to mess with that. We just decided for the time being we're going to keep paying off our mortgage. Honestly, I was surprised it was not cheaper. I don't think the cost of solar has went that far down here in the United States versus like Europe. For the cost of our solar panels, it was going to be 5 or 6 thousand, where in Europe that would have been like maybe $1,000. So it's still like 5 or 6 times more expensive. Where I think in Europe it was 14 cents per kilowatt or per watt generated by your solar panels. Where here in the United States, it's somewhere like 60 or 70 cents. So it's still gotten cheaper over the last 10 years as they've innovated and thrown more money at green energy. But yeah, if it was the line in the sand that I had drawn was if it was a 10% rate of return, I would have not put $14,000 towards the house this month, and I would have spent that $14,000 to put solar panels on the house. Uh, Again, we got 3 different quotes. All of them came in somewhere around 30,000 after the federal tax credit, but still, it doesn't make sense. At least in my area, at least with the people that are installing them in my area, the prices are just still too high, and the labor to put them on your house is too much too. Then I'd have to contact my insurance. My insurance would go up. So there was a few other things, but something to keep an eye on. That's kind of a non-traditional investment style. Usually people think of investments as like stocks and real estate and maybe a business, something like that. But if you can reduce your monthly expenses by buying solar panels or going geothermal or digging a well on your property so that way you don't have a water bill, stuff like that, you can still calculate a rate of return just like I did with the solar panels. And to me, that is an investment. You're reducing your monthly expenses, and if you can make $300 a month in savings on your electric bill, that is an investment to some point. So yeah, again, just didn't make sense for us for the in April here, but I'm going to continue to keep an eye on it. If I see prices go down, or if maybe over the next month I can see if maybe I can do the solar panel installation myself, where I could get it down to six to $10,000 and do all the work myself. That for sure I could get probably a 12 or 15% rate of return, which would be way more worth it. So there was a few other things to note. When I looked into the solar sector, there is some risk. You have to be very careful. Some of the contractors that install your solar panels may leave you hanging. They'll file bankruptcy and just leave you with the bill, and not ever even hook your solar panels up to the grid. So you'll be out all that money and still not have anything to even generate electricity. So there are some risk to it as well. So again, we just made the decision. We put that $14,000 towards house number 8 this month. So that being said, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining. It seemed like it was a long 30 days since the last one, so hopefully the next 30 days goes by a little bit faster. But be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Last month's and next month's videos are on the screen now. And as always, thank you all for watching the video, and we will see you in the next one.